Welcome to the Infinity Institute from the Dice Gods. My name is Hydra, and in today's video we are going to take a dive into the wonderful world of Fireteams in Infinity M5. If you haven't come across them before, this should explain how these work, what they do, and what they're for. If you are coming in from N4, this will also talk about some of the changes and bits and pieces that have happened in the new edition. As ever, Fireteams are a double-edged sword. They're a useful and can be quite potent tool, but there are some drawbacks. However, we will talk about that one in a minute. First, thank you as ever to our members and patrons who are literally making this possible. Special note goes out to Chris Sexton, Mr. Cheshire, Michael Rowan, Robert Foster, Sean Colburn, Robert Van Diem, Rick Wolf, Kaz, Chaos Discordia, and Joe Rogers at the upper echelons of support for the channel, but also to the other members and patrons who are doing their bit and helping making this happen. Somehow we've got over 50 supporters that are actually contributing to the channel on a monthly basis, which is just blowing my brains. It's phenomenal, and really thank you all so much for supporting. I'm glad you're enjoying the channel. If you haven't done already, please consider signing up. It costs less than a coffee, and I think last month we did over 3 hours of extra videos and stuff for members, and that includes this video. Actually, this video has got some extras on the end for members, including additional sort of descriptions of Fireteams and how they work on that kind of stuff. So if you want even more on Fireteams, this could well be the video to join and become a member on. But that is enough about that. Let's look at what we're going to talk about in this video. We look at what Fireteams are, the different types of Fireteams, the benefits, how you build a Fireteam, how they actually work, the good and the bad, the tactical types, and then for members we're going to do hints, tips and tricks, and we're going to look at some example Fireteams, how they work, what they're good at, all this kind of stuff. So let's start with what are Fireteams, the basics, the 101. They are literally groups of troopers linked to act as a squad. So this is a bunch of guys. The theory is, the idea is that they're trained together, they operate together as an individual unit, and they go out and they do the violence. So that's what they're doing. In the active phase, one order activates the whole Fireteam, so this makes them very efficient. You can, as we'll discuss in a minute, have up to 5 troopers in a single Fireteam, and that means that with a single order, all 5 of those will activate, which is pretty cool. But only the team leader does anything other than move or reset in the active phase. But that Fireteam leader does get bonuses for doing that. In the reactive phase, everyone can ARO as usual, and all members get the bonuses which are available to a Fireteam. So it makes them a lot more potent in ARO, definitely, there's no two ways about that. And in the active phase, you trade flexibility or actions of all of your troopers for order efficiency and increased potency on one miniature. So there is a trading process that happens here, but overall they are very, very useful. There's no two ways about that. So there are 3 core types of Fireteam. There are others, sort of technically, but we're just going to, talk about this. So we have duos, which there are only ever 2 members of. I don't know how you get to that with a name like duo, but here we are. Duos are widely available. In a sectorial army, you will be able to take as many as you want. In a generic army, you'll be able to take 2 as a rule, just 2 duos. A Harris must have 3 members. It is a team of 3 working together. In a generic army, you get 1, and in the sectorial army, most of the time you get 1 as well. So you will have that. And then a core Fireteam is 3 to 5 members. You only ever have 1 of these, pretty much. I've not seen that. They're going to release an army tomorrow where that's different, but that, as far as I've seen so far, you can only ever have 1 core Fireteam, and only in sectorials. So it is possible to have an allowance in a sectorial of unlimited duos, 1 Harris and 1 core. Whereas in a generic army, like a combined army, for example, you would have 2 duos and 1 Harris. So you are limited on the number of Fireteams you can have, especially as you get up to the higher numbers. Mix or match. You can have different Fireteam compositions. They are not all the same troop type, and we'll cover this a little bit more in a minute. Matched, they are all the same troop type. Now that doesn't mean that they're all Fusiliers. That means that they are all troopers who have the unit designation of Fusilier, for example. And unmatched means that they're different. When your fire team has 2 members who are matched, bearing in mind that a fire team always activates on the same order. So that's a standard feature, that always activating on one order for all members of the fire team is standard. If you have 2 matched members in your fire team, so 2 Fusiliers and some other people, then your BS stack gets +1 special die. +1 special die can be really, really potent, because what that means is you throw an extra die when you do your attack, okay? And you then get to choose to discard 1 of your die from the attack. Where this is incredibly potent is where you have weapons that have limited uses, like pitchers or Panzerfaust or things like that. Because the special die doesn't count as a use of that piece of equipment. So your Panzerfaust is limited to use, and a pitcher I think is still 2 use as well. So if you were to fire a Panzerfaust at a target and miss, that shot's gone. With the special die, you throw 2 die. You're doubling your chances of actually being successful. So special die is pretty potent, especially with disposable weapons. When you have 3 members, you get +3 discover and +1 dodge. That applies to the fire team leader in the active phase, and in the reactive phase, everybody in the fire team gets it. 4 members, you get up to +1 BS, and 5 members, you get up to 6 sense. And those stack. So if you have 4 matched members in a fire team, you get the BS stack +1 special die, +3 discover, +1 dodge, and +1 BS for everybody in that team. So it's quite potent. There's no 2 ways about it. It is quite potent. Let's look at how you build a fire team, and we're going to use the Tartary Army Corps for this. What we're looking at here is the Fireteam Chart, the current Fireteam Chart for Tartary from the Army Builder, the online version of the Army Builder. First thing to note at the top there, we have unlimited Fireteam duos, because this is a sectorial army. We have a maximum of 1 Harris and 1 Fireteam Corps. So that is where you find out how many of each you can have. These are then your, in this case, 4 fire teams. We have a Line Kazakhs fire team, a Veteran fire team, Dynamo fire team, and a Ratnik fire team. These are the types of fire team that those fire teams can form. So a Line Kazakh fire team can form a Harris or a Corps. Veterans, duo Harris and Corps, Dynamo, duo and Harris, and a Ratnik, duo and Harris. Now, it is possible, if you have the allowance, to form multiple of these fire team sorts. So you could have a Harris and a Corps of Line Kazakhs in the same list. That would be legal. That would be absolutely fine. The only thing you need to be aware of is that all members of a fire team need to be in the same combat group. That's one requisite that happens. But aside from that, you can have multiple veteran fire teams. It's possible you could have a Corps, a Harris, and a duo all in the same combat group from the veterans fire team. That would be entirely possible. Now, one thing to note, let's look at the Line Kazakhs for a second. Line Kazakhs, you have to take a minimum of 1, it says on the left-hand side, a minimum of 1 Line Kazakh to form the fire team. Everyone else is 0. You then have a Kazakh Doctor and a Frontovic and a Dozer. They all have Line Kazakh in brackets behind them. So if you take a Kazakh Doctor and you add it to a couple of Line Kazakhs, that counts as matched. That is a matched fire team. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but it's important to note when you have those names that they match. Also, when we look at the Veterans fire team, you'll see on the left you've got minimum star and star next to the Veteran Kazakh and the Frontovic. What that means is you have to take one of them. You either have to take a Veteran Kazakh or a Frontovic to form this fire team. Next we have wildcards. So they always appear at the bottom. They can be added to any fire team, but unless they have in brackets after their name a unit type, then they will not count towards the matched allowance. So just be aware of that one. So let's look at building a fire team. We're actually going to build a Line Kazakh fire team. We're going to take 4 Line Kazakhs, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the right there. So the fact that we have a Line Kazakh in there makes this a legal Line Kazakh fire team. This is a Corps fire team because Corps fire teams have between 3 and 5 members, whereas Harris top has at 3, so this couldn't be a Harris, this would be a Corps. Now because they're matched, we get the BS attack +1 special die, we get the +3 discover and the +1 dodge, and we get the +1 BS, but because we only have 4 members, we can't get the 6th sense. If we put in a Kazakh Doctor, Kazakh Doctor has line Kazakh after its name on the Fireteam chart. That means this remains a matched Fireteam, and the bonuses that we get remain the same. The BS attack, plus V scale, plus 1 dodge, plus 1 BS still remain on. If, however, we substitute the Doctor and a line Kazakh for a Conductor and a Beast Hunter, they are able to be taken in the line Kazakh Fireteam, but they do not have line Kazakh in brackets behind their name. That means that this Fireteam is only 2 line Kazakhs. So you only get the BS attack plus 1 special die. That special die would be available to anyone in the Fireteam. So if the Beast Hunter was taking a shot, it could use the special die because it's part of the Fireteam and that buff is in the Fireteam. But you're not going to get the full 4 matched bonus that you would if you had line Kazakh or took troopers with the line Kazakh keyword. Now here we're going to bring in a wildcard. We've brought in Colonel Voronin. Colonel Voronin has brackets line Kazakh after his name. So we have line Kazakh, Colonel Voronin, and a Beast Hunter. So we have 4 troopers in this Fireteam. But Colonel Voronin has the keyword of line Kazakh, so this is matched 3. So we get the plus 1 special die to BS attack, plus 3 discover, and plus 1 dodge. Even though there's 4 members, only 3 share the line Kazakh keyword, so we only get matched 3 when we get to the 3rd bonus. Hope that makes sense. So how do they work? In creation, fire teams can be made during deployment. This tends to be done when you put down your last miniature at the end of deployment. So you've done most of your stuff, you just have that last one to do, and you put down your Fireteam markers, like the one you see on the right hand side of the screen here, next to the Fireteam leader you're going to start the game with. During the game, you can create them by spending a command token. Cancellation. There's lots of ways to cancel a Fireteam. If the leader enters, the Fireteam leader enters a null state, so they're shot or they become isolated, the Fireteam breaks. Then you need to spend a command token to reform it. If the leader chooses to lead the Fireteam, so there are moments where you might take a Fireteam up the board with the whole intention of splitting them when you get further up the board to go off and do different jobs. As soon as the Fireteam leader leaves the Fireteam breaks. If the leader declares a different ARO, so if everybody's dodging and the Fireteam leader is shooting, the Fireteam breaks. If your army enters retreat, if another Fireteam is created, and what we mean by that is if the limit of your force is 1 core Fireteam, and you have a core Fireteam on the board, and then you spend a command token to form another core, the first core will break. It will stop being a Fireteam anymore. And if you choose to cancel the team, you can choose to cancel your Fireteam. That is entirely legitimate, legal, and possible. So, use in active phase. When you want to use a Fireteam, you put your order token down as usual and you nominate a Fireteam leader. You check that all members are in coherency with the Fireteam leader. What's coherency? Zone of control, 8-inch bubble. In order for your Fireteam to work, everyone has to be in that coherent area. You spend that order on the Fireteam, next to your Fireteam leader, and all members of the Fireteam do a skill if it has the movement or reset label. So if you want to move up or you want to reset, they all do that skill. They all do that thing. If they do any other skill, only the Fireteam leader does the skill and the rest of the Fireteam idle. Now you've spent an order, which means that you are subject to ARO. Enemies may choose any of the troopers in the Fireteam to ARO to, but not more than 1. So only 1 order was spent, so only 1 ARO is generated per trooper. So your troopers, if you're AROing, you must choose a specific trooper to ARO to. In reactive, all members of a Fireteam get to ARO as usual, but all members must declare the same ARO. So you can't have your 4 members of the Fireteam, 1 shoots, 1 dodges, 1 close combats, and 1 idles. That's not the option. They all have to do the same thing. But each trooper may choose a different target. So if the enemy walks around the corner with another Fireteam, and you can see 4 members of that Fireteam and your 4 members of your Fireteam all want to shoot a different member of the attacking Fireteam, you may do so. And all members of the Fireteam in ARO have the full set of bonuses. So if you have 4 troopers in a Fireteam and they all shoot and they're matched, they'll all get plus 1 BS to their shot. which is kind of cool. So it really does help in ARO. It can make quite the difference. Notes. Troopers with the NCO skill may spend the Lieutenant Order like they normally would. So NCO allows you to take the Lieutenant Order and spend it on a trooper with the NCO skill. If you have the NCO skill and that NCO trooper is the fireteam leader, they can spend the Lieutenant Order on the fireteam. Equally, troopers with TAC Aware, they generate their own order. If they are the fireteam leader, they can spend their own TAC Aware order to activate the fireteam. So having NCOs and having TAC Aware troopers in a fireteam is a really good way of boosting the orders that are available to that particular fireteam. If a trooper leaves a fireteam during the turn and they are in coherency during the states phase at the end of your turn, they may automatically rejoin that fireteam. That's not a problem at all. They can do that. That's all good. So why would that happen? If you had a trooper that was in a particularly poor position and you didn't want to activate the fireteam to activate that trooper, which would then make him targetable, you may effectively break him out of the fireteam, keep the rest of the fireteam going, but if they're still in coherency at the end of the turn, you can go, well, he's back in now, just to get the bonuses during ARO, if you see what I mean. So, the good and the bad of fireteams. Obviously, fireteams are incredibly order efficient. You can get 5 troopers, spend 1 order on it, and they all move up the field. This is very, very, very good. It's a damage multiplier. That special die that you get in there, the potential +1 BS, the efficiency with which you can move around the board, you get more damage output. There's no two ways about that. And with those fireteam buffs, you end up with this defensive bubble that enemies are less likely to want to try and probe. They're less likely to want to mess around with because it's that much more potent. And a good fireteam, carefully constructed with a solid plan, is definitely more than the sum of its parts. Because you have these troopers that can support each other, as we'll talk about later, you end up with a unit that charges around the board and is actually quite surprisingly versatile and capable. The bad side, it's a big target. You're going to have points, you're going to have lots of orders, all within zone of control of 1 miniature. That is a very, very tasty target that, you know, you might want to stick rounds into if it presents itself. It's worth hunting, because if it's moving up the board, potentially it's got a lot of weapons or specialists in, and you may look at it and think, well, actually, that is worth me just hunting down, because I can take out a lot of orders and a lot of capability all in one go. It also concentrates your force, similar to what I just said. You end up with a lot of troopers all in one place. They have to stay together, so they're going to be moving down one flank. They're going to be moving down the middle. They're going to be in a specific place. And a lot of the time, a fireteam will indicate what your plan is. Every game you should have a plan. With a fireteam, you are very clearly going to be moving towards objective A or moving towards target B, whatever. It kind of does give away what you have in mind. So let's have a look at some of the different types of fireteam that you can put together. I don't mean Harris or a core, I mean the actual kind of utility tactical choices that they present. First, we have the old school pain train. This has been around a very long period of time, and it tends to be a group of heavy infantry or even tags formed into a fireteam to go and do a thing. There tends to be a lot of armour, there tends to be a lot of guns, there tends to be a lot of violence. You can, with modern pain trains, also whack in a lot of specialists. So it can be quite versatile, but the main scary thing is there's a big lump of armour with lots of guns, very efficiently tottering its way down the board to come and hurt you. Pain trains are not pleasant. If you want to see some good examples, Invincible Army and military orders, especially the military order one, is horrific. You can end up with 5 specialists with, I think, all with stealth, so they can just creep past all of your army and then gat it in the back. They're just not pleasant. And because they tend to have a lot of armour and they tend to have multiple wounds, they can take a lot of putting down as well. You know, you might have 5 troopers who have, 3 and 4 arm and 2 vita each. So actually putting that in the ground is going to take a lot of effort. Next up, we have the Specialist Bomb. These are useful in objective missions. The fireteam is just stuffed with specialists. It's all the specialists that you can possibly cram into one fireteam. You usually put a variety of different types of specialists in there. You don't tend to just spam paramedics, for example. So it's useful if you're doing things like classified objectives and stuff like that, because it lets you move all of this lump of specialists around the board together. And you'll often stick a big gun on the front so that the enemy is dissuaded from any sort of offensive actions against your useful guys. A Swiss Army knife fireteam has diverse units, each with a role. So they'll cover and support each other, and it does multiple things well. So you might have a hit piece, you might have a piece that's there to complete missions, and then you might have a hacker to cover it all off. This kind of thing. It's multiple things working together to do something very specific, and those can be quite impressive actually. They can be quite potent. Next we have the ARO Turret. It's designed for board control. It's units specialising in reaction, or you just don't want to face in reaction. The kind of thing that you stick on top of a turret, on top of a tower, so that you get the special die in there, and it's just not nice. The enemy just doesn't want to face that really. There's lots of different ways you can do it. Essentially, it's just really, if you want that defensive ARO piece, if you can get it in with a special die as well, why wouldn't you really? That's kind of where we are. And then we have controlling the Crazies. This tends to be impetuous troopers who join with a specific other trooper that can stop them being impetuous. There tends to be a very specific trooper, like the Osnat, I think on the right there, is useful for the Hungries in Moraz. And suddenly the Hungries go from being impetuous to being regular. Controlling the Crazies type fire teams tend to get a certain distance down the board with everyone all nicely protected by cover and all this kind of stuff, and then they just get released. So your fire team leader breaks the fire team and your Crazies just go woof down the board and start munching on people. Legit tactic, quite funny to watch. Up next is the section for our members. If you're not, I will see you in a second, and if you are a member, let's dive even further into the joy of fire teams. So there you go, that is a Introduction 101 to fire teams. What did you think? Do you have any special fire teams that you love, or that you think the world needs to know about, or definitely doesn't need to know about, but you should tell us anyway? Let us know in the comments below which particular favourite ones you have. Do, as ever, please like, share and subscribe, get the word out there. That helps the channel immensely grow and develop. I appreciate it very much, and I hope this was good for you, and I will see you all soon. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.